The dashboard clock blinked 10:47 p.m. Maya gripped the steering wheel a little tighter as she approached the last turn before home. The streets were nearly empty, her headlights cutting through a mist that hung heavy over the road. Eric hadn't picked up her call again, his third business trip this month, and each time, it felt like he drifted further away. A flash of red and blue lights appeared in her rearview mirror. Her stomach dropped. She slowed to a stop, pulling to the curb just as the cruiser's door opened behind her. A man in uniform stepped out. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a slow, deliberate walk. As he neared, Maya rolled down her window, already fumbling for her license. "You are going 47 in a 30, he said calmly, his eyes scanning her face. "That's a school zone. Even at night, it's still enforced." "I didn't realize." "I'm sorry," she said, her voice soft. He took her license, his fingers brushing hers. "Maya, right?" She nodded. He glanced at the ring on her left hand. "Married?" he asked, more conversational than official. "Yes." He didn't respond. Instead, he walked back to his cruiser. Maya waited, biting her lip, heart pounding, not just from the fear of the ticket, but something else. The man's presence lingered in her mind, like a shadow. Minutes later, he returned, clipboard in hand. "I'm Officer Jordan," he said, eyes locking with hers. "This is a hefty fine. Points on your license too." "I figured," she sighed. "But," he said, pausing, "I haven't signed it yet." Maya frowned. "What do you mean?" Jordan's lips curved into something between a smirk and a challenge. "There's always another way, you know." She blinked, confused. "Another way?" He leaned slightly closer. "You're beautiful. Lonely, maybe." Maya recoiled. "Excuse me?" He shrugged, calm and unfazed. "Just saying. One night. With me. The fine disappears. No paperwork. No points. Just a memory." She stared at him, stunned. Her mind raced. Was this a joke? A test? "Are you serious?" she asked quietly. He held her gaze. "You have 48 hours to decide. After that, I file the citation. You can text me. Or not. Up to you." With a flick of his wrist, he slipped a card through the window. No badge number, no department logo. Just a phone number. Then, he tucked the unsigned ticket into her glove compartment. "Drive safe, Mrs. Maya," he said, before walking back to his cruiser. Maya sat frozen for a moment, heart pounding in her chest. The ticket was there, untouched. No court date. No signature. Just his offer lingering in the air. She drove home on autopilot, her fingers clenched on the wheel. Inside the house, the silence greeted her like an old friend. No light in the hallway. No text from Eric. She set her purse down and walked to the kitchen. Opened the fridge. Closed it again. Nothing felt right. His card was still in her coat pocket. She pulled it out, stared at the numbers. Simple. Clean. Intimidating. What kind of officer makes that kind of offer? What kind of woman considers it? She sank into the couch, still in her coat. The silence swallowed her. At 12:13 a.m., her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Still thinking about it. Her breath caught. She stared at the message. Should she reply? Block him? Tell someone? But who? Eric? Who hadn't even called to say goodnight. She typed, then deleted. Then typed again. Finally, just, "Is this legal?" Seconds later. Completely illegal. That's what makes it fun. She turned off the phone, tossed it onto the table. But sleep never came. The next morning, she awoke to a message from Eric. "Busy day. Sorry I missed you last night. Talk soon." Talk soon. 3 words that sounded like goodbye. Maya stood in front of the mirror, brushing her hair. Her eyes looked older somehow. Tired. When had she stopped smiling? The unsigned ticket sat on the table beside Jordan's card. $745 and a court appearance. It wouldn't destroy them, but it would sting. And Eric would probably lecture her, if he even noticed. The idea was absurd. Immoral. Risky. Shameful. But it wasn't just about the money. It was about being seen. Someone looked at her and wanted her, not out of obligation, not from habit, but raw want. That night, she lay in bed, the streetlights painting gold lines across the ceiling. The card still rested beside her phone. At 10:32 p.m., another message. The offer expires tomorrow night. After that, you're just another fine to file. Room 614. The Regency. Bring curiosity. Leave guilt at home. She didn't reply. But she didn't delete it either. The clock on the nightstand blinked 2:18 a.m., and Maya was still awake. She hadn't moved from bed in hours, but sleep refused to come. Her phone lay on her chest, the last message from Jordan glowing faintly across the lock screen. Room 614. The Regency. Bring curiosity. Leave guilt at home. She hated how many times she had read that line. In another life, one not too long ago, she would have laughed at the absurdity. She was a married woman. She had values. Morals. But lately, those convictions had grown as hollow as the silences between her and Eric. She thought back to their early years. Back when he would pull her into his lap in the kitchen, or send her silly texts during work meetings just to make her smile. But those moments were memories now, faded, brittle. He hadn't truly looked at her in months. She picked up the traffic ticket again. Still unsigned. Still a loaded gun sitting in her living room. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was the feeling Jordan had stirred in her. Uninvited. Yes, but not unwelcome. The next day passed in a blur. She went through the motions, replying to emails, microwaving leftovers, pretending like her life hadn't just pivoted on an indecent proposal. At noon, Eric texted, flight rescheduled. Might not make it back till Monday. No apology. No warmth. Just logistics. She stared at the message, then flipped her phone face down. By evening, she stood in her closet, staring at clothes she hadn't worn in years. A red dress, still with the tag on. It clung a little too tight at the waist, but when she turned sideways in the mirror, she didn't look away. For the first time in a long time, she saw someone who didn't look like a wife, or a shadow. Her phone buzzed. Jordan. I'll be there at 11. You don't have to knock. Just walk in. Door will be unlocked. She didn't reply. At 10:45 p.m., Maya sat in her car in the Regency's parking garage. Her fingers tapped the steering wheel in a rhythm her heart refused to follow. She wasn't shaking, but she wasn't calm either. This was madness. She knew it. But she also knew she wasn't going home. The elevator ride to the 6th floor was silent, too slow. Every floor it passed felt like one more chance to turn back. But her legs kept moving. She reached the room. 614, her reflection stared back from the silver numbers on the door. She hesitated, her breath shallow. She placed her hand on the handle, pushed. It opened. The room was dimly lit. A single lamp by the window cast a warm glow across the space. Jordan was standing near the minibar, dressed in a fitted black shirt, sleeves rolled, sipping red wine. He looked up, his eyes catching hers with a calm certainty. Didn't think you'd actually come. I didn't either, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He held out a glass toward her. Just wine, he said. For now. She stepped inside, the door clicking shut behind her. The air smelled like cedarwood and something faintly sweet. Her heels clicked softly on the floor as she took the glass. I wasn't expecting a hotel, she said, looking around. It was nicer than she thought. Cleaner. Not cheap. I wanted somewhere neutral, he said. No strings. No stories. She sipped the wine. It was dry and rich, warming her throat. Why me? She asked, finally turning to face him. He smiled. Because you looked like you needed to be remembered. The line hit her harder than she expected. She didn't answer. Just let the silence stretch. He stepped closer. Still time to walk away, Maya. I won't chase you. You decide. She looked at him. Really looked. And for a moment, she tried to summon all the reasons she shouldn't be here. Eric. Her marriage vows. Her guilt. But all she could feel was the heat building in her chest, the ache of being seen again, not as a wife, not as someone's partner, but as a woman. Jordan set his glass down. Do you want me to stop talking? He asked. She nodded slowly. He didn't touch her at first. He simply looked, allowing her the space to come closer. When she did, it wasn't rushed. No words, no desperate moves, just a slow closing of distance. Her hands found his collar, unsure but eager. As their lips met, the camera fades, not into explicit detail, but into darkness. The wineglass tips slightly on the table. A zipper slides. The sound of soft breathing. The outline of shadows against the curtain, just enough to suggest what happens, never enough to show. Time passes. Later, she lay in the bed, tangled in sheets, the lamp now off. Jordan was asleep, back turned. Maya's eyes remained open, staring at the ceiling. She got up quietly, dressed in silence. On the desk, where her purse sat, was the traffic ticket, torn cleanly in half. A folded note lay beside it. No need for thank yous. Just remember who you are. She stared at it, unmoving. By the time she stepped into the hallway, it was past 2 a.m. The elevator doors opened, and she descended alone. Back in her car, she didn't start the engine immediately. The city outside pulsed with life, but inside her chest, everything was still. Her phone lit up with another message. Eric. Landed. Home tomorrow night. Everything good? She didn't reply. She just sat there, holding the phone in one hand and the torn ticket in the other, unsure which one made her feel more lost. Maya sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the torn traffic ticket lying in her palm. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like proof of something broken. Something irreversible. Outside, dawn crept over the skyline in pale streaks of gray. The city was waking up, but she wasn't ready to face it. Not yet. The silence in the house was deeper than usual. No texts from Eric. No missed calls. Just the empty pulse of stillness around her. She took a long shower, letting the hot water sting her skin. Scrubbed harder than necessary. As if something invisible clung to her. But it wouldn't wash off. Not from her body. Not from her thoughts. By the time she dressed and walked into the kitchen, it was past 9 a.m. The coffee brewed as usual, but even that smelled different now. Everything did. The chair she always sat in. The spot on the wall where she and Eric had once planned their future. She couldn't sit there. The note Jordan left sat folded on the table. She unfolded it again, even though she had memoized every word. No need for thank yous. Just remember who you are. She wondered if he thought he was doing her a favor. Saving her. Or maybe he saw her as something temporary, like an itch to be scratched. She couldn't decide if she was angry at him, or at herself. Her phone buzzed. Eric. Back tonight. Want me to pick up anything? The mundanity of the text twisted something in her chest. She typed no, I'm fine. But didn't send it. Instead, she just stared at the screen until it went dark. Later that day, she walked to the closet and pulled out the red dress. Hung it back in its place. It looked too loud now. Too telling. She folded her laundry, cleaned the dishes, did all the things a loyal wife would do. But inside her mind, something replayed. The way Jordan's eyes looked through her. Not in a predatory way, but as if he had seen something no one else cared to notice. Like she wasn't just someone's wife. She was still a woman. The doorbell rang just after 7 p.m. She froze. Eric. She opened the door, and there he was, tired, suitcase in hand, tie half loosened. He kissed her on the cheek out of habit, not passion. Hey, he said. Sorry I've been so off. That conference was a mess. She nodded, stepping aside. Long flight. The usual delays. Lax was hell. She watched him move through the house like a ghost returning to familiar ground. Nothing felt intimate. Just routine. They sat down for dinner, leftover pasta and half-hearted small talk. He talked about clients. Deadlines. She nodded, smiled when appropriate. Then, he looked at her. You okay? You seem distant. Her fork paused mid-air. I'm fine. He narrowed his eyes slightly. Something happened while I was gone. She hesitated. But her voice betrayed nothing. Just tired, I guess. He accepted the answer. Too easily. Like he wanted it to be true. That night, as he slept beside her, Maya lay wide awake, staring at the ceiling. The same place she had stared days ago, but it felt entirely different now. She turned away from him, pulling the blanket tighter. Days passed. Life resumed its shape. Eric went back to work. Meetings, phone calls, late nights. Maya returned to errands, grocery runs, laundry cycles. But nothing inside her had returned to normal. She walked past a patrol car one afternoon in a parking lot and felt her pulse spike. It wasn't Jordan. But for a second, she hoped it was. She never heard from him again. No calls. No texts. Not even a hint that he still existed. And yet, he did. In her thoughts. In her guilt.
in the way she avoided mirrors too long, or stared into them too deeply. One evening, she sat by the fireplace. The torn ticket still sat in her drawer. She pulled it out, held it between her fingers.
It meant nothing now, and everything at the same time.
She lit a match.
The paper curled and blackened, vanishing in quiet flames. Eric walked in just as the last ash crumbled. "What are you burning?"
"Old receipts," she lied. He didn't question it.
Later that night, he tried to kiss her with more effort than usual.
She kissed back, gently, but her heart didn't move. She wondered if she should confess. Tell him everything. Tear it all down and start from raw truth.
But she didn't. Not out of cowardice, but because she wasn't sure he'd even care enough to fight.
Weeks went by.
The city bloomed into spring. One afternoon, while standing at the crosswalk, a police cruiser passed by.
She didn't flinch this time.
But she felt the ghost of his presence like a brush against her skin.
That night, she stood in front of the bathroom mirror. Wore the same lipstick she wore to the hotel. She didn't cry. Didn't smile either.
She just looked.
At the woman she was.
The woman she had become.
And the space in between. A phone buzzed in the bedroom.
Probably Eric, texting from the other side of the house.
She didn't check it.
She simply stood there, in silence, one hand resting lightly on her neck, right where Jordan's lips had once lingered. Then, she turned off the light.